All right.
Welcome,
Welcome, everybody, to Max Rice tonight. We have a very special guest for our second episode. 19th District State Rep candidate, Jeff Muehlfelder. Welcome.
Republican candidate.
Republican. I can't say that. It's Chicago.
Republican
be careful.
candidate. We're gonna fix that, Max. We're gonna undo 80 years of that problem. With
I want to ask you right off the bat. So you're the second candidate to run in your district in 70 years. Is that a correct number?
Something like that. I don't know the exact number, but in my lifetime, I know that. I know Amy Kessam from the Northwest Side GOP Club, who also helped recruit me to run. She's also a police officer, so am I. She's the first person to run. I voted for her. She didn't win, but she did get 40% of the vote. So not having ever run a Republican in that race, to walk away with 40% of the vote the very first time, I think is very promising. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think that's a very promising sign.
I agree, but if there were 40% of people that wanted to change, why do you think it took so long?
It's just for those out there that aren't familiar with Chicago machine, Democrat politics, it's a one-party town. And there's a reason it's a one-party town, because my dad was a police officer in the 70s. And he said they would make you vote at work, and they would walk in and see who you voted for and watch you vote. And if you didn't vote for the right person, the work assignment got to be really, really bad. In other words, it was a one-party town for a reason. They made you. They used thug tactics to make you vote Democrat. They took your grandma's name off the when they talk about dead people voting in Chicago, that's not a lie. They did that. They took names right off the headstones and registered them and voted for them, and they made it to be where it was just a rigged system, and that's how it was.
Aren't we one of the few states where you have to register for the primary? Isn't that unique to our state?
It is unique to our state. People who have spent their entire life in Illinois don't realize that a guy in the suburb of Cleveland doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to declare who he's going to vote for, which party he wants to vote for in the primary. And
absolutely. They might face repercussions. But have you, at least in my lifetime, have you noticed kind of didn't Democrats used to be somewhat pro-police or not anti-police? Has that been a change? Because it seems like at least recently there's been kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, you have the first mayor Daley, Richard J. Daley. Richard J. Daley, the father, he's the one that told the police, during the 60s convention to, shoot on sight any looters and, behind his policemen. His policemen were his muscle, so he wasn't anti-police, but then again, he wasn't a cultural Marxist far left-wing nut job either, like they are today. So,
that seems like a crazy switch. And then, are you actually going back? I want to go into your history because you got a very interesting, just stuff that we know each other, but it's something I've never asked.
Sure.
How did you go so you graduated from U of I, you went to financial services. How did you go from financial services to CPD patrol?
I came on. If I didn't have bad timing, I wouldn't have any timing at all. So, when I was an undergrad at U of I, a sophomore, junior, freshman, sophomore, junior, it was the .com boom, and the markets were going nuts. The job market was going crazy. I lived in a fraternity house down on campus, and we had guys that were older that were graduating, and they're like, I'm like, hey, you're graduating. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna be a consultant. I'm gonna make $120,000 a year. I go, what does that mean? I don't know, but they're gonna give me the money. I mean, that's what people were doing. I mean, everybody graduating was getting a job. They were making inflated salaries based on all these irrationally exuberant stock prices in pets.com and places that had no income, and everything was going bonanzas. And then, right as I was about to graduate, it all exploded. Enron happened. They found out that all of those stock prices were based upon numbers that weren't real. They were fake numbers. Let's talk about fake stuff. They were fake numbers. So they didn't have earnings. They didn't have Enron, and what was the other one? WorldCom. They had these schemes going, these accounting schemes where they were accounting for things 3 different ways to put profits on their books that they never had.
That's Chicago. Arthur Anderson. That's us.
Arthur Anderson they were shredding papers in the middle of the night. I made a joke at work the other night. We were moving offices, and somebody was shredding their old documents, and we were on midnight shift, and look at you, Arthur Anderson over there. Made a joke about it because that's what happened. And When that happened, if you were an accountant, which I wasn't, I was a finance degree, but when that happened, my brother had an accounting degree from North Park up here in Chicago. He couldn't find a job because suddenly 200 or 300 or 400, however many thousand that they had working for them at Arthur Andersen went out of business, and all these flooded the local market with accountants with history, with experience. So if you had an accounting degree, you weren't getting a job for that 2 or 3 year period because of all the glut of people in that industry in this locale looking for a job. Same thing happened to me with finance. That was it. All those consulting jobs, that was done overnight. I mean, I knew a guy who was working for the Bears in what do you want to call that? Marketing, making $32,000 a year, who some other guy called him and said, "Hey, we got a job consulting, $150 a year. Sure, I'll take it." And then 2 years later, he's back with me trying to find a job selling life insurance for commission, because there was no more jobs. All those jobs were gone. That's what happened. So I ended up doing that, basically coming out of school in a very, very tough job market. The only thing really available at the time were sales jobs, because they didn't really care, because you were making a commission of what you sold. And if you didn't sell anything, well, there was no skin off their back. They weren't paying you anything. And I did that for about 6 years. First 2 was the stock brokerage with oldie discount brokers, who then got bought by H&R Block. And when H&R Block bought them, they changed all the rules and all the pay plans, and it went from a pretty well-paying job in a market with spreads that we got a cut of, to decimalization or eliminated spreads. And then they cut all their pay plans, and that was no longer a good job. Then I went to Northwestern Mutual and sold life insurance, health, disability. They didn't have health, but I sold some on the side. But they had, you had your program, Anyways, I was there for 2 years. I did okay there, but a young 20-something-year-old doesn't have a great big market of wealthy business owners. The way that industry works, basically you make what your average client makes. So all my average clients were 23-year-old beer buddies out of college making 30 grand a year. And that's what I was making. And it wasn't enough to go get married and have a family. So I went to the Bank of America, not Bank of America, Chase. Well, at the time it was Bank One. And then Bank One got sold and bought by JP Morgan.
Say pre-JP Morgan.
They were doing the exact same thing that happened to me when I was at H&R Block. And when H&R Block bought Oldie, and they changed the pay plan. They changed the pay plan in the exact same ways. And I saw the writing on the board. Within 1 year's time, everybody was making less money. And they kept saying, "Oh, well, we took away from this part, but we added over here. We took away over here. We added over here." Every time they took something away over here, they added 25% of it back over here. They never added all of it back. So you slowly but surely, everybody was making less money. And at that time, my brother, who was an accounting degree, who couldn't find a job because of the Arthur Andersen people, ended up going into the family business. My dad was a police officer. He took the test, and they called him, and he had about a year on the job, and he loved it. So I decided to do the same thing, and I love it. So it is what it is.
That's amazing.
That's how I ended up with my
within
background.
the Chicago police officer, you have such a diverse experience, from training to now.
Well, I would say that many people who came on the job at that time were in similar situation to myself. People who were in human resources at big companies that had folded. People who were in sales. People who were in school teachers. It was just it was a lot of career changers, not a lot of 23-year-olds. There was a lot of people who were on their second career as a police officer when I went through the academy in my class with me. I wasn't by any means was I the old man in the group. I was kind of right in the middle of that academy class.
Like history's repeating itself with the pandemic.
Well, now I see. So as a police officer now, I see kids on the job. Like every class that comes out, it seems like everybody's 23. So we clearly during the Trump economy, people aren't rushing off to become police officers. The economy is so good, people are staying back in their mortgage business or staying in their whatever business they're in, and there's no reason to be a career changer to the police at this time. There was plenty going on. We went through the .com boom, and then as I became a police officer, that also kind of coincided with the crash in lending, the bubble. 2006-ish was the start of it, because 6 months before I decided to come on the police department, I was working at Chase Bank, and I would say 60 to 80% of my business was loans.
Oh
And
wow.
one day they stopped giving loans. They just literally stopped approving them. I would be doing home equity loans and home equity lines of credit and car loans. One day, and it made perfect sense to me why they did it. I saw it coming. I saw it coming from a mile away, and I knew that the economy was going, and I knew it was time to go to something that was a little more secure and steady, being that I was about to get married.
So you saw financial crimes in the banks, and then now as a detective, you see real crime. Seems like state house.
Yes, I saw. I saw the financial. I saw the financial. I saw what they were doing. I saw how it happened. Like I said, I saw the change in leadership at the business, the bank, versus the change in leadership when I was in brokerage. That where that was heading was they were trying to commoditize us and try to make us be like the Walmart of banking back in the day. They wanted products on the shelf. They wanted a stock boy for $12 an hour to go get them for you. They didn't want a well-educated salesperson to craft and customize a banking portfolio for you. They didn't want that. That was not going to be, that was Bank One's business where I was. Got bought by Chase. That was not Chase's business. Chase's business was get any monkey off the street to get that checking account. Put the X's in the computer and let the computer do the job. That was how that change happened. And I was tired of it. I was done with it. And I'm very happy with the decision I made at the time. The police officer is a tough job, but at the same time, I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie sometimes. And that's the sad part, is they're taking that part of the job away from us as a police officer. We're not allowed to chase anyone anymore because we're racist if we do. That's and one of the reasons why I'm running for office is because I see.
I want to ask you about that as well. That's interesting. So I saw Kim Fox speak for 5 seconds. I couldn't stay there for too long. It was just, I was gonna melt. But yeah. So they in the state of Chicago, isn't it true that if you steal something under $1,000, it's not a felony? You can't.
Yes.
Pursue them.
That used to be 300 or 350, and then it changed to 500. And now when Kim Fox got in office, I don't believe they actually changed the statute, but they changed how they're going to prosecute it. So in other words, they legislate from the bench, basically, from their office. They're using their office to legislate. There's plenty of things that, if I tell people this, I tell people this all the time. They don't believe me. I say, come to court. Nothing's illegal in Chicago. Come to court.
I wanted to steal her phone, by the way. What happened?
My aunt, we were talking one time, and we were talking about what happens if I lock somebody up for a bag of marijuana, which at the time was illegal.
Yeah.
And I said, nothing. What do you mean nothing? It gets to court, and then the judge says, how much was it? And they say it was under 30 grams, and they say, okay, case dismissed. You literally don't prosecute. You could get a year in jail for that in DuPage, like across the street in a different county. Walk across the street into this county, and they say, well, we've got too many people in our jail, so we're just not going to prosecute that. State law that's written that way.
Do you think that? Have you seen that kind of bring people from other areas to commit crimes in Chicago because they?
Of course. I'll tell you what. It certainly keeps It's not so much that it brings people to Chicago. It makes people leave the suburbs. People who are in that life who want to commit those types of crimes are not going to go hang out in a place where, or not going to go do it in a place where, say they do it one time, say they get caught with a bag of weed one time in DuPage County and end up doing 6 to 8 months on something they know would have got thrown out over there. That'll make them want to stay in Cook County. It would make me want to stay in Cook County if I know I'm driving around with a bag of weed all the time that might get caught with it.
So it drives away law-abiding citizens and attracts criminals.
It attracts criminals, yeah.
So one of the biggest issues you would face as a state rep is the fair tax.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this a little earlier, the law of unintended consequences. And so one of my biggest concerns, and one of the biggest things I'm running in this next election here, that it concerns the entire state, that I'm adamantly against, is J.B. Pritzker's attempt at communism.
Yeah, I should have said fair tax. Graduated income.
I'm not going to call it fair tax. I'm not going to call it graduated income tax. I'm going to call it what it is, communism. And then people laugh and people go, oh, he's a name caller. Oh, that's it. We can't listen to him. No. Okay, listen, if you read Karl Marx, He wrote this little pamphlet called the Communist Manifesto. It's got 10 planks. These are the 10 things he wanted to accomplish to bring about communism. And one of his 10 big ideas was graduated income tax. And the progressives around 100 years ago pushed it through. And thank God Illinois didn't get it through then. And here we are now with, J.B. Pritzker wants to get this graduated income tax. Now, here's the part that really should make people a little concerned about this. And here's a guy who, they all want to say capitalism is evil and he had all this money and he's a billionaire and they want to demonize every billionaire with an R after the name. But if you put a D next to his name,
he's the richest governor in America.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah. Hey, he's great. Capitalism's not so bad as long as it's JB's money, right?
He used the Trump tax cut money to run for governor.
Yeah. So here we get a guy, we call him the Porcelain Prince. Okay. Anyone who's paying attention, which is almost nobody. Okay. Here's a guy who the property tax rules were such that he owns several mansions. Okay. He was going to get taxed on one of his several things at the rate of somebody living. So he found out that if you take all the plumbing out of your building and no one can use the bathroom, then it can be considered an unoccupied property and get taxed at the unoccupied rate. Okay. So Mr. Gabillionaire did everything he could to avoid paying taxes.
Wasn't it a couple $100,000 that he?
Yes, a couple $100,000 to a guy worth billions, by the way.
So that's still a felony. If I steal a couple $100,000.
Yeah, if you did it, Max, it would be a felony. If I did it, yeah. If I stole it, if I intentionally misled everyone to lower my, and I'm not talking about taking advantage of actual tax laws. I'm not talking about taking advantage of loopholes that are put there for everyone. I'm talking about going ahead and doing something that is clearly beyond the moral ground, beyond the legal ground. Okay, clearly, what was his intent? You got to look at intent. Everything's about intent. What was his intent when he took those toilets out?
I mean, he wasn't remodeling.
He wasn't remodeling. No, exactly. If he was in the middle of a remodel, we could maybe make that argument. No, he took the toilets out of his property so he wouldn't have to pay the taxes. And now he wants to tax us all at communist rates. And then, everybody is so polarized in this country right now, where the media has driven this wedge so far between anyone that calls themselves a Republican and anyone that calls themselves a Democrat, where when the Democrats call something by a fake name, which is what they love to do, like pro-choice, and really it's murdering babies. When they do something like that, oh, this is a fair tax. What don't you like about fairness? How could you hate fairness? There's nothing fair about it. When I ask people, what's fair to you? What would be a fair system? How about if you make more, you pay more? Like, yeah, that's what I mean, they yell at me. Okay, well, how much more? Well, and then I explain, well, would it be fair that if every dollar that you make gets taxed at the same rate, like 10%? Like, no. Like, well, listen, so if you made $100,000, you pay $10,000. If you made $1 million, you pay $100,000. You make $1, you get 10 cents.
So if you make more, you pay more.
Or you pay another 10 cents. Guy who only makes a few dollars only pays a few dimes. Guy who makes a couple $100 million pays a couple $100 million dimes. Is that fair? Well, yeah, that's fair. Okay, great, because that's what we have. We have a fair tax. We have a flat tax. That is fair. What they want to do is make it where the more you make, the more of it they take.
And there's no numbers. There's no numbers in the bill. So I think they're going to raise everyone's taxes.
They are. Well, here's the next thing. Here's the next thing you have to look at. The next thing you have to look at is we're in this big crunch for our budget crunch. Okay, so we're spending $42 billion a year in Illinois. All right, and we're only taking in $40 billion a year. We got a $2 billion budget shortfall. Okay, what are we spending $42 billion a year on? A lot of it is pensions, teachers' pensions, state employees' pensions.
25%. 25%.
Yeah, a large portion of that is the state employees and all of the benefits that go with employing a state employee. Whether you think they should get those or not is right now is not the part that I'm going to make an argument.
Yeah, you're included in that.
What I'm trying to make an argument is that's not going away unless we change a major portion of that. The point of the matter is I got to tell this in the nursery rhyme situation here. Okay. It's $42 billion has got to get paid by someone. Okay. If we raise the rates, the people who make a lot of money, they can just get on their private jet and fly to another state and pay taxes there. We're not going to get that money. What we're going to do is scare that money. Bye. We're going to scare that money away because that money can leave. In fact, one of the other planks of Karl Marx's communism was to confiscate the property of all immigrants and rebels. Anyone trying to leave and anyone who disagrees with us, we're going to take all of their stuff. Because the minute you try to do this graduated income tax, guess what people do? They leave. Anyone who makes money wants to go. You just push them away. Bye. They constantly talk about increasing the tax. Yeah, if you have the money, if you're wealthy, if you're J.B. Pritzker, if you're one of these guys that is going to be targeted by this super huge income tax, you just go, see you later.
Like his wife with the lockdown.
I don't want to be.
Like his wife with the lockdown.
And then hey everybody, guess who's left to pay the $42 billion? Guess who's left? Everyone out, all the guys down here. So the rate has to rise to meet $42 billion for everybody else. It's idiotic. They talk about all the time increasing the tax break, bringing businesses into the state. Every single time they want to bring a business into the state, you know what they do? You know what they have to do? Promise them a 10-year tax break. In other words, nobody wants to come here for the taxes. It's proven that they give everyone a sweetheart tax deal and exempt them in order to get them to come here. The Amazon didn't come here. One of the reasons they were trying to get them here, they were, we're going to get Boeing came here. Look at the deal they gave Boeing.
That's a good point.
They had to give giant tax breaks just to come here. What does that tell you about the taxes? We're never going to get these businesses to come here. If we tax the crap out of them, and if we raise the taxes higher, they're just going to leave, and they're going to take their jobs with them, and everyone else will be left. Just like we're going to become Detroit. Detroit went bankrupt. They went out of business. They refused to lower their spending. They just kept raising the taxes, the local, municipal, and everybody just left. Bankrupt. Sorry. See you later. Hogs get slaughtered. Pigs get fat. Hogs get slaughtered. Okay. You don't want to give up.
That's a great point. Because I'm just thinking in my mind, what if they offered Amazon like, hey, we're going to tax you more. Come over. You're gonna pay.
Come over. We're gonna raise the taxes. We're gonna raise the corporate taxes in Illinois. Come on here.
Come on in. Gas tax, gas stations. Come on over.
Look what's happening to all the gas when they passed that 25% gas, the 25-cent increase in the gas tax. Everybody just went to Wisconsin. Anyone within 25 miles of the border they go over the border to buy the tax.
30% of the state lives within an hour of a border.
I drive to the towns over here that offer lower gas. If it's 5 minutes away, if it costs me a third of a gallon to get there to save 50 cents a gallon, that's what I'm going to do.
So a small amount of your Republican colleagues voted for the gas tax. Would you vote for it, or would you been against it?
No, never, not in a million years. It's progressive. You know, these people that talk about progress and progressivism, and then they go and push things that are regressive. It just makes no sense because they don't make any sense. We're talking about a tax that, I mean, if you make $20,000 a year, don't you need the same amount of gas? Or isn't your commute to work the same as the guy who makes $1 billion a year? I mean, you got to put the same gas in your tank, don't you? I mean, is he going to drive 30,000? He's got 30 times more money than you. Is he going to drive 30 times more than you? No. So the gas tax, who does it hurt more?
That's the 100, like a
taxation.
Essentially more the richer billionaire than someone that's struggling day to day. So what are some ideas you have to lower the day-to-day expenses for the district and the state as a whole?
All right, let me tell you a little. Remember the song we learned in grade school? We'll talk about learning in grade school, but I didn't get to tell you my grade school story that people will remember. But there was a little old man. He had a goose, and it laid a golden egg. And his wife said, "Hey, that goose is holding out on us. We need more money. Tell that goose to lay another egg." You know. And the goose laid a golden egg the next morning, and it was another golden egg. And that goose is holding out on us. You know, that goose, let's go, let's threaten that goose. Let's see if we can get more egg. And then the wife finally convinced him, cut that goose open. They did. They cut him open. They never got another egg. They never got another golden egg. The Democrats missed that day of preschool. They missed it. They didn't get that story. They were sick that day. Keep raising the rate. Oh, we're going to get all this taxes out of them at once. You know, if they always talk about the evil 1%. If we killed the 1%, killed them, cut their heads off, took all their money, okay? It's $24 trillion, okay, is the 1% in this country. We owe $22 trillion on the national debt. We wouldn't be able to get, if we paid off our national debt, we wouldn't be, we spend $4 trillion a year in this country. If we killed the 1% and took all their money, we wouldn't be able to make it 1 year, assuming we paid off the debt.
So no Saudi Arabia.
And then tried to pay. And then guess what? Those people pay like 70% of all the taxes. You know that $4 trillion budget that we spend every year in the, I'm talking about federal right now.
Yeah.
Where would that 70% of income come the next year if all these guys that we just cut their heads off aren't there to pay taxes anymore? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Eat the rich doesn't work. This is why socialism fails. This is why communism fails. It simply doesn't work. We have 100 years of history now to tell you it doesn't work. 200.
Are you concerned that it's so popular? Like it's so not just popular.
Yes, that's what it's insane that people can talk about this. And
yeah,
capitalism's evil. What? Where do you come up with this stuff? Who are you listening to? Is there no one that talks sense to you if you believe these things? What? I get frustrated. So that was my first story, was the golden goose, because, and then the other day that they missed, okay, the other day that the Democrats missed in preschool was the day where they taught that song. You probably know it, okay? I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed a fly. I guess she'll die. I know an old lady, she swallowed a spider. Swallowed a spider to catch the fly. It wriggled and tickled and tickled inside her. You remember this song? You remember the next one? Then she swallowed the bird to catch the spider, swallowed the spider to catch the fly, and what happened in the end? She died, of course, right? All right?
Yeah.
That is progressive policy, okay? When the people say capitalism is evil, capitalism is a failure, they're lying to you. They're talking about the failures of government. They're talking about the failures of things that the founding fathers never wanted or never intended. They're talking to you about the Federal Reserve System. They're talking to you about welfare. They're talking to you about all of the things they put in place that failed. And then they needed another plan to fix the failures of that plan. And then when that one fails, they needed to swallow the spider to catch the fly. And they swallow the fly to catch what happens in the end? You die. It doesn't work. Okay? They missed that day, I guess. They missed that day at kindergarten, okay? I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. They didn't get that story. They missed the moral of the story. They keep missing the morals of all the stories over and over and over again. And that's where we're going with this.
It sounds like a Democrat debate. That's so funny. Because it's just like, they keep promising more and more and more. And it's like,
yeah, and then this causes everybody to do this. So then we had to pass this law to fix the problems that this one caused. And none of it's constitutional. None of it's what we should be doing. We should be taking the government away. We don't need the government. Do you really need the government to tell you that you need to wear a face mask to go outside? Do you need it to tell you that? Are you 6? Because I got a daughter, she's 6. I got to tell her that.
No, I need celebrities. I need celebrities to teach me how to wash my hands.
You need a celebrity to tell you what to do? I mean, because they're so smart, they dropped out of grade school, you know? He's got,
exactly.
You know, who's listening to these people? It doesn't make any sense to me.
But we're stuck. So we're stuck. So we have to, these people are unfortunately in power. What can we do about it?
Vote for me. Vote for the Republican. Not every Republican. Some of them are just as bad. Some of them are crony capitalists, and you know, they say capitalism's evil, and then they point to the stock market crash in 1929. Listen, stock market crash in 1929 was made possible by the Federal Reserve, lending at rate below market. That's people were borrowing money to invest in the stock market. Then when it crashed, they owed back money they couldn't pay. That wasn't even theirs. So they jumped off the roof. None of this happens without the Federal Reserve. You know, Max, I could talk for another 3 hours.
Me too. That's why we gotta do this again. We gotta do this again if the campaign progresses. I'm gonna stop it now. But thank you so much for your time.